estate agent, or if you perform any type of professional work related to conflicts of interest with developers, to include but not limited to landscaping contractors, rental agents, etc. Okay, next question. Raise your hand if you will steer clear of conflicts of interest. Raise your hand if it is determined that you did not steer clear of a conflict of interest. Raise your hand if you would resign your council seat. Do you need me to repeat that? Okay. If it is determined that you did not steer clear of a conflict of interest, raise your hand if you would resign your council seat. Okay. Raise your hand if you believe council members who are also real estate agents should be involved in the sale or purchase of city land or properties. Should be involved. And raise your hand if you believe council members who have business relationships with developers should be allowed to vote on issues involving that developer. All right, last yes/no question. By a show of hands, how many of you have filed all of the disclosures required by law and the State Ethics Commission by the due date on October 1st? Okay, very good. All right, so now we will start with the discussion questions, starting with Mr. Crowley. And the first question is, tell us about yourself, tell us about your background and how long you've lived in Hanahan, and what makes you qualified to be on City Council.
Hello, my name is Tim Crowley, and once again, I would like to just give a hand to Paige Turner for giving this to us tonight. I've lived in Hanahan for 5 years. I bought a home new in Bowen, but I've lived in the Charleston area for 25 years. I moved to Hanahan because it was in the middle of our traffic patterns to go back and forth to work, and my wife actually demanded that we live closer to work, so that's why we're here. But it's a fabulous community, and we absolutely love it. I've been an educator for 30 plus years. I've owned 2 businesses. I think that makes me uniquely qualified to see the intricacies of a city and business, and also the day-to-day operations of managing interpersonal relationships within the community. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I'm Mike Dyson. I've been living in Hanahan for 63 years. Grew up on Yeamans Hall Road. I have 3 kids, a wife. My 3 kids graduated from Hanahan High School, so we're true Hanahanians. I have had a business in Hanahan for approximately 40 years. We do contracting work for individuals. I think that for 36 of those years, we were the all-state insurance contractor, so appreciate it.
Need to turn it up a little bit? Hey, I want to welcome everybody to this meeting. I appreciate y'all coming. My name is Bill Colvin. I've lived in Hanahan. Well, I came to Charleston in 1967 for the military, Air Force. And once I completed the military training, I fell in love with Hanahan long before that time, and bought a house over in Lakeview subdivision in 1996 when I retired from Charleston Naval Shipyard. My children have gone to school, to Hanahan schools. We love this location. Our children were raised or babysitted in the Remount Road Baptist Church. They've always been in a church surrounding. And when I retired from the shipyard, I got called by the West Vaco paper mill to come up and work up there, so I worked 15 years at the paper mill before I retired. So I'm retired and cut off time. I'm retired and I'm willing to work full time to help anybody, any of the citizens in Hanahan. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jeremy Watts. We've been here for a little over 6 years now. We moved our family here for the schools, the safety, and the sense of community. Hanahan is a wonderful place to raise your children, to meet people and develop long-lasting relationships. I work in business development. I also own my own consulting business, so I believe I'm qualified. That and my 2 decades of volunteer experience qualifies me to build relationships with the business community. This allows me to take ideas, information, analyze it, and understand what the best possible decision is. Thank you for your time.
Hello. Thank you all for taking time away from your families to come out and speak with us. My name is Amanda Shea. I've lived in Hanahan all 41 years of my life. I attended Fishburne Elementary, Hanahan Middle before the back was built on, and Hanahan High. I graduated in 2001. I was the last class before they built on and took away Senior Hill. Actually, Miss Turner was Miss Warren, my 10th grade English teacher. So I've lived in this community my whole life, and when I had my children, I couldn't imagine raising them anywhere else. So I have a 20-year-old son and a 13-year-old son who both have the 20-year-old graduated in 2022 from Hanahan High, is now attending Charleston Southern, and my 13-year-old is in 8th grade at the elementary school now for the middle school, but he's taking 9th grade classes. I've built very good relationships being a long-term resident and lifelong resident within this community. I've followed many of the great people that helped build this city from the bottom up, and I've seen what the city's implemented over 41 years, what's worked and what it hasn't worked. And I believe that that would make me an asset to be on your city council, to know that we're not reinventing the wheel. I'm also a registered nurse, ER, OR, ICU, and for 2 years I did COVID. I also have opened businesses for doctors, so I have dealt with many agencies, interdepartmental agencies, as well as worked my time out in Mercedes working with OSHA, EPA, and DHEC. So all of those things, I believe, would make me a great candidate to represent you and to help get our city back on track. Thank you.
My name is John Gumbar, and I've lived in Hanahan for the past 3 years. John Gumbar, I've been in Hanahan for the past 3 years. I worked for the city for the past 10 and a half years, where I retired from the city police department back in June of 2023. What makes, I think, me uniquely qualified as being, when I worked for the city, I did police, fire, and EMS, where I was transferred over to the EMS department for 1 year when we had a new fire chief in order to help situate and get him used to running an EMS system, because my background is public safety, being a paramedic, police officer, and firefighter for over 35 years. Being in public safety in Hanahan, especially with the law enforcement, I was in the school system. I got hired in as an SRO at Hanahan at middle school, worked my way up to an SRO supervisor, sergeant. I taught your kids at middle school when I first started out, the DARE program, drug, alcohol, resistant education. I've always been active with all your children in the schools. I've loved it here in Hanahan. During my time, I remarried, met my current wife who lived in Hanahan, and that's what brought me in now to be a Hanahan resident. I just want to continue to keep serving the community. I've seen everybody here. I've probably been to your house before, whether it was as a fireman, a policeman, or EMS. I've done codes enforcement. I've seen everybody pretty much at their worst. I've seen everybody at their best. And I've heard a lot of complaints about the city, what we can do better, what we can do worse, when your tragic times that's been going on. And now, since I'm retired, I still want to keep the service going. I'm a public servant at heart. I'm dedicated. I always put service before self. I've always have done that my whole entire life, and that's what I will do for you if I can earn your vote to be the next city councilman. And I'm all about 100% transparency, and I have an open door type policy. I will meet with anybody and everybody. I've heard problems where I couldn't do anything about it being a city employee because, confidential type stuff. If you tell me things like that, I don't want to spread people's business and so forth. But coming on city council is going to give me a sense of purpose that I actually could finally be able to make a change in Hanahan and help y'all solve your issues and problems. So that's just a little bit about me.
Good evening. I am William Axon. Moved here in 1993 with my parents, attended Fishburne. I heard Amanda talk about that. Hadn't heard about the Wildcats in a while. Subsequently, my wife and I, Sharice, which she's in the back there, she likes everyone seeing her, so I'm going to make sure I point her out. We're raising my son, Jonathan, at Hanahan Elementary. I graduated from the Citadel, attained a degree in business administration. After that, my wife and I actually traveled the nation as catastrophe adjusters. So I know the importance of preparedness for devastations and what the cities can do and some opportunities of what it can be. I've subsequently opened my own business. I own a TAP insurance agency, which handles commercial and personal lines insurance. As far as qualifications, I own my own company. I'm also on the board of directors for multiple nonprofits where we talk about multi-million-dollar budgets, which is important. I volunteer at Hanahan PTO. I've coached rec leagues here in Hanahan. I've done what I can to do the good work. The other thing that I kind of want to talk about as well is in 31 years, I know what Hanahan was, I know what Hanahan is, and I know what Hanahan can become. And I'm excited about that because I think we're at kind of a crossroad here of what we can be, and I want to make sure we attain and keep that small town charm that we all came to love and know. So that's all I have, except for I do want to listen to each and every one of you. I almost had you, Jeff. I want to listen to each and every one of you, the citizens. I want to be transparent. I want to make sure you know that you have eyes and ears on council that wants to do what's in the best interest for Hanahan as a whole.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeff Chandler. I think I've got the longest history with the city here because I've lived here better part of 65 years. My wife and I, we've raised 5 children. They've all graduated from Hanahan. I personally graduated in '73, back when Hanahan was first formed into a city, not anymore a public service district. Since then, we raised 5 children. They've all graduated from Hanahan High. My wife was a teacher at the middle school and the high school here for several years. I personally look forward to serving and doing more work for this city. I've been doing this for 29 years now. And just about everything we've done in this city to date, I've been a part of that decision making and making it go forward. I don't think anybody here will understand the history quite as well as I do, even though if you've lived here a long time. I certainly have seen the changes firsthand being on council and working with the city and coming up with the ideas that we recently put into parks that the citizens chose to do with the referendum. I'd love to see the parks. You go by there on a Saturday or any day in the week, and there's so many people there. We're running out of parking. We're going to have to add more parking at the Hawk's Nest. It's just insane. But it's a wonderful thing to see the city growing and all the new youth and all the people that come to the city because it's a bedroom community, and that's a tough thing to do in this economy. But I love Hanahan, and that for that reason, it's a jewel in the middle of Charleston that most people don't know about unless you come here.
Hey y'all, I'm Ken Boggs. I've been on council, just finishing up my first term. I did 6 years in the Navy and moved to the Low Country in 1988 and made the mistake of spending 20 years in Goose Creek before I moved here. But I've been here since, I've been here about the last 10 years or so. I think I'm also on several nonprofit boards for individuals with disabilities and was a co-founder of the Family Resource Center for Disabilities and Special Needs out of Charleston in 2000. I think we've done a lot of good stuff this last 4 years. We've got the city through COVID. We got the city through the rioting that was happening, and we've achieved a staffing level that has been unprecedented. It's best staffing level we've had in a long time. We've changed the city culture so that employees serve you better. And I hope you'll give me 4 more years to do it more. Thank you.
Okay, just a little bit of feedback for our candidates. I'm hearing from a couple people. People are texting me. If you think you're talking loud enough, you are not. So you see how close this microphone is to my mouth? I don't want us to share a bunch of germs, but you need to hold it real close, and I need you to project. So talk louder, please. Okay, and we also got some feedback from our cameramen. I know that sitting here for 2 hours is a long time, but they're asking if you can please stay seated. If you have to stand, just stand right behind your seat. But they would prefer, so that we don't have to move the camera around, that you don't stand up. So, okay, the next question, Mr. Dyson. What do you believe are the top 3 issues facing the city, and how will you work to address those?
I think number 1, growth and revitalization. Can you hear me? Is a big topic. We need to have growth because Hanahan's landlocked. And the reality is, if we don't have smart growth, we're going to have taxes having to be raised. They're going to get elevated. Back before Tanner was developed, we had Hanahan proper that we had to consistently raise the taxes, or they were raised during the 80s and 90s, because we had none of that. Now, what do I think you need to do to put in place first is your infrastructure. That should be a priority before we start the growth on there. And to me, the number 1 key that we need to do right now is concentrate on revitalization. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. My first agenda item that I would say is important is that when we would open up the communication for the meetings and the videos that are on the TV, whenever you're at home, you want to tune in to a council meeting or a planning commission, you should be able to do that and be able to hear them. We have the technology to do that, and we pay IT people that can do that. It just, I think staff is working on some acoustic problems in the courtroom. Secondly, I would like to have a look at the staffing. Here recently, we've lost staffing in the zoning administrator, and we've lost a codes enforcement individual. So that process needs to be brought up and remedied. That's not the first time. We had also some problems down in Public Works for a supervisor. Thirdly, the Planning Commission, when they receive a packet, I'd like to see them have a packet that shows the design. If they're going to rezone a lot in the city of Hanahan, show the design work of what's going to go on that lot before they rezone it. It's kind of hard to rezone something and then look at the plan and the design of the development afterward. So that's a couple of things that my concern. Thank you.
I would say the 3 main things that we need to work on in the city are transparency in our communication. Our citizens don't always know why council is making the decisions they're making. They don't understand the processes. I think that we need to implement a Citizens Academy. This would give the opportunity for citizens to be involved with the city's decision makers, with the people that can explain these things to them in grave detail, so they understand it. So they understand the decisions that are being made that may be difficult, but they will be able to be a part of things. We'll be able to communicate these ideas and thoughts, and people will feel that ethical decisions are being made. I think also our second biggest issue is growth and revitalization. I think that we have to get a clear plan for the Bowens community. There's too much city time that's being spent on this. We need a clear plan to move forward. That will give us the time to look at our downtown area, to revitalize that, to make these areas walkable, get some of the traffic off the roads, allow people to spend their money in Hanahan, have coffee shops, have businesses, have restaurants that they can go to, a nice clean area. Second with that, we have to clean that area up. We have to get a full-time codes enforcement person that is working, with the city, helping out in volunteer situations that need it, and also finding the people that are not keeping their areas clean. The area in the downtown has to be cleaned up before businesses want to go down there. We get those two revenue streams. We diversify the revenue for the city. The city does not have a spending problem. The city has a revenue problem, and we have to correct that.
I have quite a few issues that I think are plaguing our city, but we'll start with my first biggest one. That is the building. I've been here, like I said, 41 years, and I was here in 2003 when they started the building of Tanner Plantation. None of us expected it to be as big as it is now. I mean, we love our neighbors there, don't get us wrong, but I understand your concerns with the traffic trying to get in and trying to get out, as well as the school issues and some of the other things that you're looking at. So as opposed to just saying it is one developer that I am against building, it is all developers until we upgrade our infrastructure. We update our roads. We make sure we have the proper turn lights for the people to be able to get their kids to school on time. We make sure. I came down Willard Drive today. Have anybody been down Willard Drive? That's a scary road. I mean, we need some paving. We need some attention. Anybody drive down Yeamans Hall Road? Asking that because I did on the way here, and I'm just wondering how, our politicians and people and our people in the zoning and codes office drive by them every day, and they don't feel the need to step out and say something or do something. So I also believe that we need a very proper codes enforcement, an aggressive codes enforcement that is going to hold people accountable to keep our city beautiful. If we keep our city beautiful on our own, there's no need to be paying into revitalization to upgrade it and make it look better because we've taken the initiative to begin with. But the stormwater drainage is another issue all in itself. We need the ditches cleaned, and I know they had asked a question on the Women's Forum regarding our relationships with Berkeley County. I believe those should be strong relationships. They have wonderful departments that we don't have within our city that we should utilize. You okay?
The top three issues that I believe, in my opinion, that we're facing is public safety, smarter growth and development, revitalization, and quality of life. Everything has to start with public safety because we can't have growth, revitalization, and we can't have a good quality of life without having the city services in place to provide that service. When it comes to the police department, they're doing their best. We had a mass exodus in the past couple of years in the fire department and in the police department where people were leaving for higher salaries. Every year we get behind the 8 ball and trying to pay our police, fire, EMS people because the counties are getting in more revenue and other agencies are upping their pay by $5,000 to $6,000, and it's hard for us to compete to keep them there. So we need to also look for alternative methods to try to retain those employees. It also goes back to, as far as the public safety-wise, on our shortage from what I understand, back in 2008, is back when they built the Tanner Fire Station over there in Tanner. is that when they built the Tanner Fire Station, from what I was told, that they didn't hire any new personnel to staff the fire station, that they just took existing firefighters off of trucks, which made our shortage of people on trucks go down to two-man trucks throughout the city when they were fully staffed. But however, that we have never came up with the shortcome to fix that problem. So now, because of we got a new fire chief who's great, Chief Ritz, he's proactive. In order to get fire departments to help us, we have to have a minimum staffing. And he did that, and the choice that he had to make at that time was to pull that fire truck out of Otrano and to re-sign those people so we can get the services and assistance from other departments to help us out. So we need to get that truck back open and find a way to get those people back into Otrano to get that fire truck back there to provide the services that needed to be in Otrano area. Which also brings up the codes enforcement issue. The 10.5 years that I was working for the city, I also assisted with codes enforcement. I was probably one of the only police officers that actually enjoyed going out, meeting with people and doing codes, getting them to clean up their area. You know, you would see what they were doing and you would assess them a monetary fine, but the monetary fine was not for gain for the city, was for compliance. And so we need more city codes enforcement.
So this is the beauty of being the sixth person to answer this. However, so I was over here checking off things that people talk about. I agree transparency is a very important factor. I think sometimes the city has a communication issue, which was also touched on. You know, the biggest thing when someone has a disagreement, normally they don't understand where the other is coming from. So I understand non-disclosures. I understand executive sessions. But in the same respect, I also understand truth and transparency of what's going on. If it's not a if it's not a attorney-client privilege issue, if it's not a contract negotiation, I think the citizens deserve to know what's going on in their city, and not just Ordinance 13-2024 for an example. What exactly is it? Which it's highlighted, but some other issues with that as well. I want to kind of touch also on employee retention. I agree that pay is one, but as you alluded to, every time it's just going to increase, increase, increase. So I think it's one part of the solution. One thing that I believe we should do is too often we invest in training only to see the employees leave. Hanahan does do a good job of training their people. They do a good job of career advancement, but then how do we retain that talent that we have? So one thing that I think would be a nice thing to have is incentives to live and stay in Hanahan, further tie with it. And by that, I mean potential housing incentives or assistance for our people. This is a wonderful area to live in. However, if you've looked, the rent is not sometimes the best for people. So trying to get those first responders, those EMS, fire, police in the city, give them opportunities to stay, further strengthen the ties, because we all know if you live here, you're going to love it. I'm sure if you work here, you love it too, but if you live here, you're definitely going to love it. And so let's try to do that. And the other thing would be generating revenue, which we talked about. There's only a couple ways we could do that. I don't want to raise taxes if I'm on city council because I have to pay them too, to be quite honest with you. But one thing we can do, thank you, is make sure we don't have those millions of dollars going to other cities.
Of the three things in this city, definitely revitalization. We're working on that downtown, closer. We're working on that downtown. We've had several people that are looking to develop different parts of the downtown area. If you see how the parking lot and the store's been done with the Piggly Wiggly, and next to it, all the new stores that's been opened up lately. There's plans for the gas station to be opened up into a unique type of place. We're also looking at developing other properties in the area. As far as retention, that was a problem national-wide when COVID hit. Everybody in the police and fire were all leaving for higher-paying jobs. And as you said, the county does every once in a while raise rates. That's an impossible rate for Hanahan to keep up with. But we have made big strides over the last couple of years, and every time we finish a budget, we try to be as competitive as we can with the other cities as far as our pays and our salaries go. So, thank you very much.
Hey, y'all. Well, I guess they've said most of it, but in Otrano came to Hanahan They were promised a fire truck when they came into Hanahan, and I think we need to fulfill that promise, keep that promise. I applaud Chief Ritz for making agreements with Goose Creek and North Charleston to help out, and they can help pretty quick. But North Charleston's pretty busy. I think we might need that truck back in Otranto. As for staffing, we have gone to great strides to improve the culture and improve pay for our people. We can't compete with the revenues that North Charleston and even Goose Creek have for pay scales, but we can provide a better culture, and we've done that. And so I'd like to read for you a quick note from the fire chief and the police chief about our staffing levels. Chief Gephardt says, recruitment and retention were two highlights this year as the police department reduced vacancies by 75%. There are currently 2 certified applicants in the hiring process, which may be finished by November 15. In total, we have 3 in the hiring process. And Chief Ritz says, as far as recruitment goes and retention goes, we have surprisingly surpassed any and all expectations that I had coming in from the outside. Our staffing levels are higher than they ever have been. We currently have 36 of the 38 full-time positions filled, with 7 of our 9 paramedic positions filled as well, with 1 additional in the work this week, making 8 to 9.
To finish up this topic, I'm going to touch on 3 points that have already been talked about. So, growth, revitalization, and responsible development. Growth and revitalization are essential for our city's future, but they must be approached thoughtfully. I believe we should prioritize economic growth without contributing to urban sprawl. Instead of expanding outward, let's focus on fixing, maintaining, and rebuilding what we already have. By investing in our existing neighborhoods and infrastructure, we can increase property values, improve community spaces, and enhance the quality of life for all residents. Revitalization of our current areas strengthens the fabric of our community. It means supporting local businesses, upgrading public facilities, and preserving the character that makes our city unique. This approach not only stimulates economic development, but also fosters a sense of pride and belonging among residents. Now, when planning responsible development, it is critical that we address the Bowen project in Tanner. Bowen needs a master plan. Completion of this project should be focused on the commercial center to add valuable services all can enjoy. Enhance walkability of the nature trails, focus preservation of green space, and ADA updating where needed so all community members can enjoy this space as well. The city needs to work closely with the Wren Group to help provide clear guidance about the needs of the community and the rights of the homeowners, the current residential population, and how to effectively balance finishing the project with regards to current infrastructure and traffic challenges. As in all projects, I continue to oppose rezoning of single-family zoning to commercial. Homeowners have rights. To sum it up, let's work together to breathe new life into our neighborhoods, making them vibrant and prosperous places for everyone. By focusing on smart growth with our existing footprint, we can build a stronger, more connected community.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Colvin, you'll answer this next question first. And I'm starting to realize that some of the topics I'm going to ask you about you're already discussing, but perhaps you want to go into more detail, and maybe you don't. Maybe you want to wrap up in 30 seconds and move on. So this next question is about growth and revitalization, and it is a kind of a long question, so take some notes if you brought a notepad. It says, residents are concerned with not being heard when it comes to growth, green space, and the overcrowding of roads and schools. So a yes/no question is, do you support further high-density neighborhoods and apartment-style building in Hanahan? Or do you support a moratorium on building until the infrastructure is addressed? And then the second part of that is, what are your thoughts on redeveloping some of the houses that are within the business district, and turning them into commercial property?
Thank you. Start off with, as far as the residents, I think the residents need to be able to understand exactly what's going on in the planning commission meetings and also in the council meetings and any executive session that may transpire after they come out of the executive session. I don't believe there should be any NDAs, non-disclosure agreements on an employees or the council. They take care of that NDA part whenever they in the special session. I'm not for increasing a great deal of population and housing in the city of anymore. I said we did plenty of that in Tanner, and we've learned some lessons about the infrastructure, how it coincides with the number of people that's going into a certain section. Before we build a section, we ought to allocate how many living spaces should be adequate in that area, and not be changing the code or the zoning to justify any particular type of build. Also, a moratorium, we really have a moratorium, because whenever we go to build a section or a project in Hanahan, it goes through the planning board, which also should go through the design board also, and then it's brought to the public, for the public to look at. So when it comes up to the public to see, the public should be able to evaluate whether that project is adequate or they feel it's not, and then that can be addressed by your representatives. And I'd like to speak a little bit about the representatives in Hanahan.
Thank you, Mr. Colvin.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you.
So I think that every, rezoning district or rezoning opportunity has to be carefully observed. Hanahan is a bedroom community, and every person has property rights, and changing zoning in areas can be very tricky. But the city is a business, so the city needs revenue. The city needs money to pay their officers, our EMS. So it's a very difficult process to look at. But Bowen's community needs finished up. A master plan put in place and move forward on that. That will definitely help with the revenue. There's already a certain number of homes that are being built over there, so I don't see any reason to rezone that particular area. Downtown is very similar. They've pushed out probably far enough, and we need to focus on building those areas up. I think that transparency, communication helps out when we're all looking at this, so we understand what decisions the city is making, why they're making the decisions that they are. So as far as the moratorium, I'm against that. We need to, continue to grow, just like everybody's costs of goods are going up. Cost of doing business as a city goes up. So we have to be able to survive as a city, or we'll no longer be Hanahan. And I will never vote yes to raise your taxes. So, I'm completely against that. So, we have a problem that we have to solve, and we have to look at every issue individually, with the property rights owner, the property rights being the forefront of the decisions, and the city being a close second.
Okay, so building off of what Jeremy said, I do believe that transparency is very important, especially whenever we're involving our community. They need to be able to make the decisions for whatever is in their best interest. And they need to be able to portray those to us. So I want to be able to implement a 1 day a month meeting with the people, so if they have questions or they need something broken down to where they can understand it, because I know I go to the council meetings, I don't know if they know it, but I did not go to school for zoning and codes. But that way we can break it down, you can understand it, and instead of one or two standing up and saying no, we can all do it as a community, because we are Hanahan, one city, one community. As for the concern for green space, I completely agree. I have an extra lot that lives or that sits right next door to me, and there are people sitting up here right now who have sent me out brochures asking to buy it so they could build on it. And I said, as long as it remains in my family, it'll be the one piece of property in Hanahan that is not developed. Do I support a moratorium? Absolutely, absolutely. I think the building needs to stop until we can get our infrastructure, our safety, our lighting, and what is best in the best interest for our citizens first, and then worry about bringing in more. As for the redeveloping houses in the business district to commercial, I live in that district. I live on Moore Street. And let me tell you, it's not something you want. You don't want 9 people living in a 2-bedroom house running every kind of shop possible outside with windows boarded up on houses. I would absolutely say no to that. Redeveloping houses in the business district, just, I don't think that would be good for anybody, especially the people who strived, lived, paid for those houses, and live on fixed incomes.
So for the residents for not being heard, kind of like what Ms. Shea here said, if elected, I will have a meeting once a month to be able, about 100% transparency, having a meeting, hearing everybody out. People that come to the council meetings sit there and they voice their opinion, but nothing ever happens with it. You need more in-depth explanations of what's going on in the city. Long as it's legal to disseminate the information that what we're doing on city council is allowed, y'all should have the right to know about it. It should be published on our website or our Facebook page or forum that you could just come in and we hold once a month to be able to answer any questions. So I'm real strong about listening to y'all, okay? Far as growth and development and the moratorium, we need to slow down growth, because if we keep growing and growing and growing, we're lagging behind. We're finally starting to catch up with the public safety, kind of catching up with the fire department, but more growth means more traffic, which means more call volume for our first responders. We need to slow that down to make sure that they're taken care of first, make sure that we have adequate staff and equipment and training and so forth to handle the needs. A prime example of growth outdoing our public safety is if you look over at Bowens Corner Elementary School. A subdivision was approved to go across, which is going to be about, I think, 85 to 90 homes. If you average 2 cars there, that's 180 extra vehicles on Williams Lane with one way in and one way out. I sit in that traffic every morning taking my 2-step kids to school, and it's astronomical. I mean, it's backed up. So you imagine adding another 180 cars there, one way in, one way out. It's going to make it worse. We need to find some way to open up to get a second way out of that school, out on the Henry Brown or something, before we allow any more building to come up. If we keep building up in Tanner, they're going to be going to Bowens Corner Elementary. Bowens Corner Elementary is already taking people from St. James because Goose Creek Elementary School has already hit full capacity. So we're just overcrowding ourselves with kids and population, and the roads can't handle it. All our roads are owned by county and state, so we really don't have a say-so in the roads, but we got to work with the county government and state government to find finances in order to be able to try to do something with the roads so we could have a strong public safety and a good environment. Thank you.
So to get to the question, it was about obviously not being heard, and I just want to make sure it was to redevelop the houses already in the commercial district, not to rezone. I just wanted to confirm that.
It says, what are your thoughts on redeveloping some of the houses that are within the district and turning them into commercial property?
Thank you for the clarification. So with that, I will say that I think we should complement the existing neighborhoods that are there, not overcrowd them, which is what some have already talked about. One way to do that is we already have older commercial areas that are sitting empty right now. I know that Blackwell's is under contract, is my understanding. I'd love to know what would be going in there and what they're going to be doing to complement the area, because I do think that we should attract businesses that align with the lifestyle of our residents. You know, another thing that I do think should be added is about impact studies. We already have them when you do a PUD or a planning district, but it needs to also talk about the school, the impact to the schools, not just the infrastructure, not just the traffic, but what is the schools going to do? What is our first responders, what are they going to have? Just to make sure we get a more clear understanding of the true impact, not just so many cars going down the road. The other thing with that, with having businesses in the area that are already zoned, so not exactly what the question was, it would allow to help reduce the traffic, because a lot of times, which I kind of talked on the tail end, if I want to go to a certain store, I have to go to another community, and I have to spend my money over there. And now Hanahan's talking about issues with revenue and trying to get more in there. So if we already have a commercial area, we already have places that can be revitalized and can be done in a tasteful manner. I say focus on that first. Let's see where we're at then and see what we need and try to capture that revenue. Because every time I see people in their cars, I think, well, if they could be in a golf cart, they could be walking on the sidewalks. We need a couple more sidewalks. That wasn't a question, but I just wanted, since I'm bringing it up, over in my area, I need more sidewalks.
Once again, good evening. Usually by the time it gets down here, everybody's said pretty much answered it over and over. So let me address a moratorium. No. While Hanahan is having growing pains and stuff, I don't accept that moratorium just to stop everything. We need to develop, but we need to do it reasonably. I personally have voted against any rezoning from single family to multifamily, which includes apartments or high density. I don't want to see that myself, but we also have to respect the rights of property owners that already have in place the right and have been working on the right to build their property out as they see. This has been in the works for quite some time. And that's one of the things about being on city council. You have to be impartial and you have to be fair. You have to let the property owner, it has his rights, but also the people in the community around it. And that's why it's important to go to events when the city has where you have a chance to give input on the next 5 years or the 10 years on the plans affecting the city and its growth. This is a great city, great city. Our downtown area getting revitalized, that's great. We have a lot of people that are interested. Well, I don't know yet myself exactly what might go at Blackwell's, but that's what that's one of the things we're looking at that's going to help the city out with revenue. The amphitheater, we just cleared the property down there. We hope that that turns out to be a jewel of wedding after wedding at that place. We'll have to hire extra people just to manage the park down there. That is one of the greatest things that we got going in the city, and that's to see all the people and the children come out and enjoy what we've done in this city over the last 4 years, well actually the last 50 years, but for the last 4 years we've put about $15 million into green space, parks, the amenities for a quality of life for the citizens in this city. And that's not been easy to do when we're a very bedroom type city that doesn't have the big revenue. Thank you.
Hey, y'all. For adequate sustainment, city needs to have about 3% of its real estate dedicated to commercial. We have less than 1%. We need to, rather than raise your taxes, I would like to have some more commercial in areas where people can go to the restaurants instead of traveling to North Charleston, and it's a growing pain that infrastructure always lags growth. People come, you don't have their taxes to pay for new roads and new school construction unless you levy bonds, and so it's rather than going in debt. We're developing slow enough to where we can pay for what we're doing, and Yeah, I think if, for infrastructure though, if you were to block off Hanahan from Goose Creek, 75% of the traffic would disappear. But that's all I got to say.
Do I support high-density housing, new apartment buildings? I oppose new apartment buildings in Hanahan, but I do support the rebuilding and redesign of old existing structures to new modern buildings that complement the city's design goals. Rebuilding houses for commercial property? No, if that requires rezoning from single family. Do I support a moratorium? No, a moratorium on all buildings stagnates economic growth. We do not want to prevent economic growth. We can focus internally on revitalization that rebuilds instead of sprawl into green space. Due to the long process of state and federal agencies, we can work concurrently with projects, monitor closely the progress while keeping the city informed.
If a property owner meets all the qualifications and requirements for the zoning ordinances, then they're gonna be able to build or remodel what's there. Now, if they come to rezone, that's when you can do what you would need to do. If the project's good, go for it. If it's not, turn it down. Do I support high density? I don't really care about high density. I don't want to feel like I'm pulling in my neighbor's yard when I pull in the driveway. So I'm not a big density person. Redevelop into from a residential neighborhood into commercial? No. These people around them bought residential, and that's what they really want to keep it as. A moratorium? No. I think you have to keep going, else the taxes is going to be elevated. Goose Creek, Monk's Corner, Somerville, they're not stopping. So how can we stop? You still got to do your studies and all of that to try to help traffic control, because they're not going to stop. You ever come out of Tanner and you get on North Rhett in the morning? All that traffic's not coming from Tanner. It's coming from way up. So we need to work with neighboring cities to see what we can do to make that a better situation. Thank you.
Okay, I think Mr. Watts, you have the first answer on this next question, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So the next question is about revenue, which some of you have already talked about a little bit. What ideas do you have to help the city generate more income? And if your idea includes bringing more businesses into the city, how do you plan to attract business owners to bring their businesses to Hanahan?
Well, first of all, we have to get the Bowens community complete, get them on a track that moves them forward, that's safe. We have clear guidelines, and then we can focus on the downtown area. That area has to be cleaned up before people want to come down and do business there. Definitely before businesses want to invest money. So, getting a full-time codes employee, cleaning up the area, volunteering for, I'm not talking about going out and finding someone's grandmother. This is something that if there's rental property and it's not being maintained, we have to look at finding those people, warn them, have them clean this area up, and then find them if they're not going to. Work with business development leaders and work with them to put places that are good for Hanahan, where Hanahan people can walk to them, get the traffic off the roads. A golf cart style community. We're working on some greenways and things now, make these areas more accessible, get the traffic off Yeamans Hall, and allow people to spend money in Hanahan where it belongs.
So, as the other candidate, one of the other candidates has stated before, we have more than enough commercial property that is not being utilized currently as it is throughout the city of Hanahan. So to be able to bring businesses in there would generate a higher tax base for the city. In order to do that, like Mr. Watts said, we're going to have to clean the city up, Old Hanahan, because that's where a lot of your industrial district is. We need code enforcement to do that, but we also will need the help from the community. We're all going to have to work together. If you're seeing something that doesn't look right, reach out to one of us. I know I plan to have an open line of communication. You can always reach out to me, and I can head right on up to Larry. I've done that plenty of times before. But I think in order to get those businesses in here and to make Hanahan a wantable area for businesses, we're definitely going to have to improve the downtown area. But I also think we need to bring in employers that can help employ some of the citizens within the city that don't have the means to get around. Okay.
Basically, it's a repeat of like what Mr. Watts said. Revenue, it's all about starting up with codes enforcement. We need to revitalize downtown area. That's what they're working on. One of the things they were talking about, what I didn't get to finish answering, was to redevelop my houses, turn them into commercial. They already have. We just had they had a special meeting where they took an address on Yeamans Hall Road and rezoned it from single family to town center, and they said any property that continuously bumps up to it could potentially be rezoned to town center if it bumps up to a town center, which means they could run that thing all the way down Yeamans Hall to Murray Avenue. You know, so how big do we want to have the town center? Or do we want to displace a lot of residents and so forth in order to have a big, strong area of a town center to bring in revenue and displace a lot of people? If investors offer them a good substantial amount for their home, they're probably going to sell because they know they're going to bring in a higher income from a business. Cleaning up the area is the first thing. We've done that before many years ago when I was working with the city. We did a clean sweep over in the Charleston Farms area. At a time when I was working as a school resource officer, we took all our students and police cadets and things like that. We went out and we cleaned it up, cleaned up trashes, took big bins out there, everything, cleaned it all up. Because when you clean it up, people have interest in maintaining their property. When it gets dilapidated, it gets run down, and people see that they don't care about their area, it's going to attract the crime. And if all around town center, if it's not cleaned up, the criminals look at it and say, well, if they don't care about it, then that's a good place for us to move into because they're not going to do nothing with us. Like the CVS Center, it's starting to be run down. There's graffiti all the time. It's illegally dumping there. I used to work with the property owner or the owner of the building to get that cleaned up. I said, you know, if I have to, we'll send you a fine. You know, we'll cite you. You need to get cleaned up. You know, we have to have somebody dedicated. We need more codes enforcement officers to enforce this, not worry about people that have HOAs because they are already a pain in the butt as is. They're homeowners, and the non-coded areas is what we need to clean up. If we have a nice, attractive city where somebody drives through thinking about a business and they see nice area, they're going to want to come here. If they see trash and everything piled up, they're not going to want to come.
So I've spoken on revenue multiple times. So I'm not going to be a broken record. However, I will add just some highlights. Big thing is obviously allow us to capture the revenue flow we talked about. But one thing I do want us to talk about is coordinating with our county and state with business development, economic development, making sure that we have that partnership and we get any sort of tax dollars that they may have to assist us with a public and private partnership for incentives. Also, streamlining the permitting process, I think would be a good thing to do. I know we have a new permitting clerk for business, which is great, that we've already established, hey, this is something that's important. The other thing I did want to touch on, because yet again the subject was on revenue, was with the opportunities for the existing use that we have, the commercial areas that we have. But I also want to say for the moratorium, I am against that as well. I don't want people to think I'm shirking the question. And as well as high density, yet again, I referenced in my prior one, we have the areas for the commercial. Let's do that first, and let's go from there. It was there before. We can redo it in a way that makes sense for the people in this area.
Again, on the revitalization and raising money for the city, our best chance is the downtown area. Definitely changing out some of the residential house to commercial. The town center is a hodgepodge of that. That's true. But I don't think that we're going to go much further down Yeamans Hall. It doesn't make sense to go any further down, and I think past those houses, they're not in a town center zoned area anyway. If they're contiguous, yes, they can be approached and done that way, but it still has to be the property owner approaching us to do that. We don't go and tell somebody how to do their property. We don't go in and insist that they build this or build that. We don't do that. That's the property rights of the owner. As far as the city and its growth, that's one of the tough things about being a bedroom community. If you're a bedroom community and you don't have a lot of hotels and you don't have a lot of restaurants and stuff, it's hard to get that tax base that helps cities provide the other things for the quality of life that they have. So we have to be very resourceful, and we have to be very careful with the way we spend things and what we do. And so it takes a lot of work, and our city administrator and our staff, they do a great job, the fire chief and the police chief and the rest of them, making do with what we got and making it work and within budget. And that's one of the things I'm very proud of. We've been able to grow the budget, we've been able to grow the city, and we've been able to provide a better quality of life for everybody in the city, and we're constantly working on it. I think just like the road going down to Eagle Landing, tying us in back to the ball fields and stuff, that's a great thing, because now you don't have to go out on Rivers Avenue and back and cross those tracks. And for parents that were dropping off their kids, going back and forth 4 times a day, that was a real risk. Thank you.
So I've been in growing communities. I've been in dying communities. We have issues, but we have good issues. We did about a 1-year study on a long-term plan to revitalize the downtown area of Hanahan, and we've already gotten started on making it work, and I'm hopeful that it'll continue working, and downtown Hanahan will sometime be a place we all want to go. And I guess that's all I got.
Generating revenue for our city is essential to maintain and enhance the services that make our community thrive. As a city council member, I will be committed to finding balanced and sustainable ways to increase our revenue without placing an undue tax burden on our residents. First, I believe in fostering economic growth by attracting new businesses and supporting our local entrepreneurs. By creating a business-friendly environment, we can expand our tax base organically, bringing in additional funds that can be reinvested into our community. Second, I propose exploring grants and partnerships with state and federal programs. Tapping into these resources can fund vital projects like infrastructure improvements, public safety enhancements, and community development without straining our local budget. Third, it is important to review our current spending to ensure efficiency. By identifying and eliminating wasteful expenditures, we can direct funds to areas that need them the most, maximizing the impact of every dollar. Lastly, I'm committed to engaging with you, our community, to gather ideas and prioritize initiatives that reflect our community's values. Your input is invaluable in creating solutions that benefit us all.
One way to generate money for the city is through grants, state, county, federal. We've had great success with the county. I think we had 100,000, 100,000 towards the Hawk's Nest. We had 100,000 towards Bettis Boat Landing, 50,000 towards Stewart Street Parks. Everybody knows Railroad Avenue. I think we got a federal funding there for $4 million. So that's one way that we generate revenue for the city. And I'm going to tell you, the staff that we have does a great job, great job. They're actually the ones responsible for doing this. A second way is to get more commercial to the downtown district. I think you can offer some incentives through there because your rates is just so much higher. Thank you.
I agree with the tax assessment. It's life for the city of Hanahan. We got some industrial bases that we've had in the past, and some of them remind me of the behind City Hall, on the other side of City Hall going toward Hawthorne. There used to be several industrial parks back there, and I know the staff itself is working on changing some, or exploring some additional industrial base out off North Red on our property line. The city administrator's been working hard on trying to get a property line established and maintain commercial buildings in that area. Also, the tax base structure for light and heavy construction is the only way we're going to bring money in. It's not going to be a tax base based on sales and services in town square. We're going to have a bigger tax base to reach out to. Charlie, I don't know if any of y'all remember Charlie McQuarrie. He had a shop, a pretty good shop down there in Hanahan, had a machine shop. He did a lot of work for the Navy Yard in West Vaco doing piping work and all. And he was a good asset to the city at the time for a tax base. So that's the type of things we need to look out for, is trying to balance our tax equation from light and heavy industrial on the outskirts of town to our smaller shops and vendors in the town square, and be able to achieve both at the same time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Shea. We have 2 more questions, and then we'll wrap up and go to our meet and greet section or portion of the event. So this question is about inclusion for all people. Ms. Shea will answer this one first. So the question is, there has been criticisms about the increasing Latino population in Hanahan. As candidates for a nonpartisan city council seat, how do you plan to ensure that all residents of Hanahan, regardless of race or background, feel welcomed, included, and represented in city decisions?
Well, like I said, I live in Old Hanahan, where they have a lot of rent by the room and a larger Hispanic base there. So what I've done is I've downloaded a translation app on my phone, and they have too. For instance, I had a gentleman come from down the street today to tell me to call 911 because a box truck had taken down an electrical line that was sitting in the middle of the road that was live. So I went and called, but we had, on my street, we have adapted this translation device, so if anyone needs help, we can be there to help them. I think that would be something that the city should utilize as well. And I think we could also, if they aren't still there, we can bring back the classes to help us understand English and the non-speaking English to be able to learn a little bit of English too, so we can all communicate and they can take part in our city as well.
Can you repeat the question again, please, for me?
Yes, and I don't think the question is so much about the Latino population, but the main part of the question says, as a candidate for a nonpartisan city council seat, how do you plan to ensure that all residents of Hanahan, regardless of race or background, feel welcomed, included, and represented in city decisions?
Well, no matter what their race or anything besides Hispanics, whites, blacks, anything, everybody should be treated equal. You should hear everybody's voice. Everybody's voices matter. If they're a resident inside the city of Hanahan, then they have a voice to be heard. And we as council members, if we get elected, we need to hear their concerns as well. We have a lot of migrant community that's in Hanahan. If you drive around, you can see that, and I've seen that firsthand with being in public safety. We do have a barrier between the Spanish and English population of trying to have police officers that can translate and handle the issues with the Latino community that speaks Spanish. But we should be a city for everybody, and we treat everybody just the same. It doesn't matter with their documentation status. They are a person. They are here. We have to deal with them. If there's and give them the services that we can provide within the city. When it comes to anything else related to their immigration status, that's for the federal government to worry about. But we need to treat everybody the same, and my philosophy is I treat everybody like I want my mama to be treated. And so, I mean, that's how everybody should be treated. Everybody's human, and everybody should be treated with dignity and respect, no matter where they came from, because they are a resident of the city of Hanahan, and they deserve that.
So, for inclusion representation, which was the question, the one way we can reach out to them is proactive community engagement. I want to make sure that our underrepresented residents have a way to get a hold of us, that all of them feel heard. One way that I already heard, which I would agree with, is regular town halls, virtual meetings, things like that. I know we have multiple first responders that do speak other languages, Spanish as well, but I will also say we have Cuban there, which is upstanding Hispanic business owners. We have the Hispanic bakery that are upstanding Hispanic residents. And so I would hate for us to slide into any sort of generalizations about that community. Not saying anyone is, I'm just saying in general. The question was about in diversity and inclusion and representation for all citizens. So that's my thing, virtual meetings, proactive community engagement, and making sure that we have a way for them that are underrepresented on council or staff, that they are heard and they know how to get a hold of us.
Inclusion is a part of the mission statement that the city has. It always has been. I've not ever sat in a meeting where we have not treated anybody that's come to city council with either a problem or to be recognized, that the city hasn't opened up its arms and said, we're here, what can we do for you? I've never seen anybody treated differently in that case. Whether you're Hispanic, regardless of your religion, male or female, there's no exception to that, and that is a part of being on city council, and that is to be impartial and fair and to treat all the same.
I like to think that I'm ethnically colorblind as much as anyone can be. I appreciate the new Hispanic businesses in the Piggly Wiggly parking lot there, the Cubans and the store next door that has some fantastic food in the back, by the way. And I think we give everybody a chance to be heard, and we go to extreme lengths to make sure that we do that. And that's all I got.
I love Cuban. My family and I go there all the time. That place is fantastic. Inclusion and representation are fundamental to the health and vibrancy of our community. As a city council member, I will be committed to ensuring that every citizen feels seen, heard, and valued. We are a city full of diverse backgrounds, cultures, and perspectives, and it is this diversity that makes us strong. I believe that decisions affecting our community should reflect the voices of all its members. I will work to create accessible platforms for dialogue so everyone has the opportunity to share their ideas and concerns. This means holding community meetings at convenient times and places, utilizing online tools for wider engagement, and actively reaching out to underrepresented groups. By fostering an inclusive environment where every person has a seat at the table, we can make informed decisions that benefit everyone. Thank you.
As a councilman, you have citizen appointments that represent planning commissions, committees, so forth, that make decisions out there. They're very much included on the front end of building or zoning. You also have opportunities at the council meetings, 2 opportunities during the meeting that you can come and express any concerns. And I'm going to agree with Mr. Chandler. The mission statement is point on. It says, to strengthen the qualities that define the spirit of Hanahan. These include family values, an authentic hometown feeling, inclusivity, award-winning schools, neighbors helping neighbors, safe communities, and seizing opportunities to improve the city for future generations.
I'm going to tell you right up front, I don't have any prejudice about anyone. If I'm on council, you bring an issue to council, I don't care who you are, I just want to know what the issue is, and I want to know what I can do to resolve it or make it better until I can resolve it. I think that we have a spectacular workforce in the Latino community. We see them out doing all kind of jobs, and they do great. The only thing I would say is, if you come to the city for planning or zoning or any type of request, get with the staff and let the staff show you the proper procedure on filing it, so when it does go before council or go before zoning, you have less chance of being denied that type of restriction. And I welcome y'all to the community. Love to have you. Thank you.
So Hanahan is a very diverse community. It's one of the things that I loved when I moved here, but I think we are missing key issues, and really we need to talk about them and communicate. So the first issue, I believe, is, you know, our students and our parents who do not speak English. I mean, we need resources to help here. So we need to work with our county partners. We need to get these kids these resources. We can't push them through the schools. It is lowering our test scores. This is creating major issues. I think that we should work also with groups that help these community members out with loans to start businesses, and then, you know, work with our city to allow them someone that can help them communicate back and forth to the city. Again, the Citizens Academy helps out with that. You have it in multiple languages. They could go right to the site, read it, and start to understand things on their own. But also, you know, we have to be open to this group, to these people in our community, and invite them down to the city level where they feel represented, where they feel heard, and allow these people to do what, you know, I thought was so wonderful about Hanahan is it's very diverse, but everyone is going into the same direction. They want good schools. They want a high quality of life. They want a place where they could raise their family and have connections and feel a part of something. And I think if you see most of the community, the football games, the rec centers, it's exactly what you see, but you do not see it at the city level. Also, our education process needs work.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Gumbar, you have the last question, and then we'll get y'all out from under those bright lights and move on to the meet and greet portion. So the last question is about public safety and employee retention, which some of you have already touched on. So the question reads, the city's police and fire departments have not kept up with the growth of the city. Employee retention, especially within the city's public safety teams, has been a problem for a while. What are your plans to reduce turnover and to increase quality hires in our public safety departments so that all areas of the city have equal coverage? And if your plan includes increasing salaries for first responders, How will you plan on paying for it with an already limited budget?
Well, with the current staffing that we have, one thing that when I worked for the police department, as far as maintaining staffing levels, is one, a lot of the officers, whether when I was over at the fire department or in the police department, a lot of people wouldn't really leave for higher salaries. There was a lot of other underlying issues. A lot of them was that they didn't feel appreciated, they felt overlooked, they were doing things and wasn't really being taken care of and rewarding them. To find another way besides salary. A lot of them wouldn't leave for the higher salaries if we had better working conditions, as far as trying to find some type of compensation program, not monetary, that would attract them. There has been talk about housing, bringing them in, trying to subsidize housing, maybe the city buy some houses or something to that effect, to be able to allow payroll deduction for them to be able to live in the city. The cost of living for the city cannot support what the firefighters and the paramedics and EMS and police officers make. They cannot afford a house in Hanahan. They cannot on their current salary. So they have to live on the outside, or they live together. If they're single, the officers live together. You know, it's kind of funny because if you look at Park Place Apartments, it's like a substation, because we got a lot of officers that are living together in there because they want to live in Hanahan, but they can't afford to get a house. We need to specialize, Hanahan needs to specialize in something that no other police department has and dedicate to that. At one point in time, it was training, offer training. Any officer that wanted training, they went to the chief and said, we want training. He would send them. If we had the funds, we would find the funds to send them to be trained and trained and trained. So that way, if anybody in other agencies, they say, what does Hanahan do best? We have the best trained officers. If you want training, no matter what it is, we send you to that training. And that increases them to be able to respond better, be more knowledgeable, be able to function and do their job. And that's the same thing with the fire department. Our fire department has grown rapidly, of having all these new officers now, all the lieutenants. They're going through Fire Officer 1 school, Fire Officer 2 school, and they're all happy. We're taking care of them. We're allowing them to go to school, get the training that they need, and we just got to figure out a way to keep them there.
As a lot of us know, the most important job as a city councilman is setting the budget. So this plays right into this question, in that EMS, fire, police, that's all life-saving options. So as far as I'm concerned, that's kind of a non-negotiable, making sure that we support them properly. But it is more than just a salary, as many have noted. So I'll just highlight a few things I've already mentioned. But you know, the biggest thing is making sure that when we train them, we keep them. I think we all feel that. Clear career advancement, making sure that they understand the path way to advancement, making sure that they have recognition and appreciation. And you hit the nail on the head, which I spoke of earlier, on the incentives to live and stay in Hanahan. I think we all know that it's not an easy solution. If it was, I assure you it would have already been done, or at least I hope it would have already been done. So this isn't an easy situation, but partnership with other areas, making sure that we know how they did it and why they did it, and what the results are, is also very vital. Trying to learn from others' success as well as their failures, so that we can build upon that. We don't have to reinvent the wheel here. We can just build and enhance and try to make something even better than what we have.
The employee retention is actually has gotten much better over the last couple of years. I believe that's due to the new department chiefs that we have in place. They are doing an excellent job. I think in the police department, out of 35 open positions, I think we're filled 33 of those positions right now, and there's also one that's in the works. So we're all but one fully staffed there. Same thing with the fire department. We've been hiring new people, and the quality of life, I believe, in those departments, along with what we've been able to do the last 2 budget years for the step increases and the COLAs, I believe that that's one of the reasons that our numbers have risen, is because we've been answering that call to do a better job for our employees.
Like I said before, staffing's not as big of an issue as some people would have you think. We're better staffed than we have been for a long time, and I think it shows. We have a new training officer with the fire chief, and so the new employees are getting trained up, and we have We have police and fire pretty well fully staffed. People come and people go. A lot of people go for the salary. I'd rather a well-trained employee go for a better salary than him not be a well-trained employee in Hanahan. And a lot of people that go like Hanahan and come back. Not all of them, but some of them do. Just because this is a better community to work and live in than our neighbors. And if we can't get into a salary war with our neighbors for these positions, we've done raises so that we can make it easier for them to get by. But we have if we raise our salaries and our neighbors raise their salaries, and then we go fighting for the best people, then we're going to lose out because we just do not have this revenue stream that we need for any of that. That's all I got. Thanks.
Employee retention is vital to the strength and stability of our city. Our dedicated employees, especially our frontline workers in police, fire, EMS, and public works, are the backbone of our community. When we lose them, we lose valuable experience and the trusted relationships they've built with residents. To keep these essential team members, we must offer fair compensation, opportunities for growth, and a supportive work environment where they feel valued. Investing in our employees isn't just about pay. It's about respect and appreciation for their commitment in serving us all. How do we offer fair compensation? Incremental salary increases based on performance reviews and cost of living adjustments. As we revitalize, infill, and focus on economic growth without the need of losing our green spaces, we will organically create revenue for compensation. As a city council member, I will prioritize policies that enhance employee retention. By taking care of those who take care of us, we better ensure that services for everyone and build stronger, more cohesive communities.
Creating a good working environment is very critical. Have you ever heard that employees don't quit jobs, they quit supervisors? I think that's true. You know, we have great department heads, and they really do a good job, and they're able to hold on to a lot of the employees that, you know, we're trying to retain. So the big goal for us is we do want to retain, because we don't want to have to spend extra taxpayer dollars. One of the ways to do that too is manage the budget. Easy saying raising salaries, which we've have a step program that allows us to give everybody raises in the year along with the cost of living. One thing I want to go back to is I have an email address at the city. I have a phone number, and it's open anytime to any citizen that's there. You have a concern, I can promise you I will answer it. If I can't answer it, I will get it answered for you. I just really appreciate all y'all showing up tonight. Good audience. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Mike. Well, over the years, like I said, I've been in Hanahan since '67. And Hanahan has always been kind of a nurturing neighborhood for the fire department and the police department. We've pulled them out, and once they got out of school, the kids that were interested in it, we seen that they were got some education and guidance to be able to go take a test and promote themselves along up the ladder. I don't want to block that progression from them children that want to start off, because they're not going to go to Berkeley County and start off. They're not going to go to Charleston County. They're not going to go into the city. Most of the time they start right here in Hannah, in their own hometown where they're comfortable, and start learning the procedures of firefighting and also police work, if it's working in the schools or working in the firehouse. And this rat race of progressive pay raises and bonuses, incentives, that gets out of a never-ending cycle, because you start competing against everybody at the same level as you are in our town, our city, used to be a bedroom community. We can't compete against them people, because if you pay up for that price and they get ranked up to there, they're going to move over to where they can move up to another higher rank or another higher pay grade. So I just would like to emphasize the fact that we do a lot of nurturing as far as the fire department and the police department. I can name several children that grew up right there, and where my daughter grew up in Quilt
Thank you, Mr. Colvin.
on a local street, and went into the police and fire department. So thank you much.
Thank you.
So I think I just want to point out how big of a difference there are between answers. We have candidates running for council, and then actual council members. And if you notice, there's just a huge disparity in information. The increase in employee retention at the city is up 80%. It's as high as it's been for years. It's going to be very, very difficult to stay there and definitely raise it. I mean, diversifying revenue, being as competitive as possible in pay, that is absolutely important. But this is a transparency and communication issue. The city does a lot of great things. There's a lot of success, but sometimes we don't know it, and definitely it's not getting out to the public, like this statistic. So, we have to do a better job with transparency. We have to, put in some education, better communication, get these things out to the public where they know what a good job in areas that we're doing, and then also in areas that we need to improve. So we get, off track, thinking and working on things that we're doing really well. So cultivating a great work environment, I believe that's important, and I believe that is obviously what they're doing by the numbers. Diversifying revenue and being competitive in pay, yes. But I think that we have to focus on getting the right employees. Someone who has a hunger to grow and move up the chain quickly, is probably, I'm not sure if that's always the best bet for every employee at Hanahan. We have to understand what the path to growth is, and be realistic with these people and evaluate them, and cultivate an environment that they're a part of something bigger. They're a part of Hanahan.
So this area touches a little close to my heart. My husband worked for the City of Hanahan Parks and Recreation for 12 years. So, whenever it came up on the questions we may be asked, I took a little bit different turn. I went out and I interviewed ex-employees and current employees to find out what their grievances were and why they were leaving and why we had 35 positions that we had to fill. Coming about it, yes, it was the decrease in pay, but they understood we were a small community, so that was not their big issue. Their big issue was, just like Councilman Dyson said, they did not quit the city, they quit the leader. They quit the manager that they had. A lot of them said they had no access to the tools necessary to do the job. There was no advancement for them within the city, and outside hires were brought in over qualified people who had several years in here at the city. For me, I think a nurturing, and as a manager, I have managed over 50 nurses and many more CNAs, listening to your employees' grievances on a regular basis, giving them some positive reinforcement rather than only negative reinforcement, and also offering them the training and tools they need to succeed. And if you do those things and you let them know that they're a part of this community, they'll stay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, candidates. I appreciate you being here tonight and giving up your evening to share your thoughts with everyone. That wraps up the discussion portion of our event.